Welcome, Dr. Chung, to OMSC's Roundtable. It is a pleasure to have you join us here today to talk about OMSC and to learn more about you. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Pyung-ho. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We wanted to start off this conversation today for OMSC Roundtable and learning more about you. I know it was last year, August, that you came on board as a new director of OMSC, and we wanted to get to know more about you. So do you mind introducing yourself, what you've done prior to coming to OMSC as well?
Yeah, sure. So one of the first questions I get all the time is where you're from or where's your home?
Yeah.
And that's a really hard question for me to answer because I haven't lived in one place for more than 10 years. So I grew up in Korea. Well, I guess Korea, I've lived the longest, and I came to the States when I was around 10. And then because of my dad's job, he had to go back, but I love the States so much I stayed on. I went to a boarding school in Minnesota and went back to Korea for high school and came back to the States for college. So I'm exactly a 1.5 generation Korean American. And I recently became a US citizen 3 years ago during the pandemic, went through a drive-through ceremony and got my US citizenship. So it's really difficult to answer where you're from because I'm all over the place. But I guess Boston is where I spent the most of my young adult life. That's where I did my master's as well as PhD. So I did my PhD at Boston University with Dana Roberts and eventually went to Azusa Pacific University right before coming to PTS. That's where I was. I was associate professor in the School of Theology, as well as director of general education. And right now, I currently serve as a director of OMSC, as well as editor of the IBMR, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And I also teach in the history and ecumenics department.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I know, myself included, there are many of us who've lived abroad and lived in different contexts. That's so hard to say where is home.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you
I'm
for...
hoping to make Princeton my home.
Yeah, I think that's good. One of the things that you mentioned is that you've done your PhD at Boston University. You work with Dr. Dana Robert, who is a wonderful scholar, very also involved with OMSC. But at the same time, within your dissertation work, I know many of us who are students in the PhD program hope to publish their work one day. I know that you did. The title of it is called Adopting for God, the Mission to Change America Through Transnational Adoption. I think this was published in 2021, right? I was curious though, if you can briefly introduce your work, your dissertation work, your monograph. What is it about? What do you aim to uncover in your work?
Yeah. That book is really interesting because it's cross-listed in so many different areas. It's Asian American studies, history, religious studies, world Christianity. So a lot of people are confused by what is this book categorized as. And I kind of like the confusion because that was my goal, to have a very interdisciplinary book. So the goal of the book is to uncover what the missionaries did to and start this transnational adoption movement. So a lot of adoption history books cover missionaries very briefly, but this is the first historical book that analyzes the theological differences between ecumenical missionaries and evangelical missionaries and how their theology informed their methodology and what that eventually did to the American society to reshape family values and race matters. So I make a pretty bold argument that transnational adoption was one of the key factors that shaped neo-evangelicalism as well as shaped some of the ways that American Christians think about race and racist stances, because a lot of these kids were not just Asians, but there were also mixed race children from various races, and there was a very strict hierarchy of so-called adoptable children. So I uncover those stories and I try to shed both negative and positive light. I just let the archive speak for itself, and that's my goal of the book.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I think it'll be readily available for those who want to purchase online, read online through libraries as well. So thank you for sharing more about your work. Now coming back to where we are here in Princeton, New Jersey, here at the OMSC House, I think we're sitting here in the living room with this beautiful painting by Soichi Watanabe. I know I've heard that this is one of your favorite paintings here. It's great that when I first heard the news that you were coming on board, I was so excited. But I would like to hear what the experience for you has been like coming here since August of last year. How has that transition been? I know OMSC is very much incorporated into Princeton Theological Seminary. How has your interactions been with students and teachers and professors here?
Yeah. So I've been involved with OMSC for a pretty long time since my PhD studies because of Dr. Dana Roberts. She was very much involved. So I knew OMSC from its New Haven days. And I loved it so much. I loved going to the OMSC House. Whenever I went to Yale Edinburgh Conference, I would be housed there, interact with the missionaries, the residents. So when I saw the advertisement for job posting, I read the description. And I remember thinking, this wasn't this year, this was many years ago when Dr. Tom Hastings was appointed. I remember thinking distinctly, wow, it would be amazing if I could one day work at a place like this. And when it was posted this last year, I just applied, not thinking that I would get the job. And as I was reading through the job description, everything that they said that I'm going to be doing is what I would consider a dream job. So I get to interact with resident scholars. I get to infuse my scholarship with practical implications. I get to interact with students on a regular basis. I get to do my research. I get so much resources and funding for that. So it just seemed like an amazing opportunity. So I was interested in how the transition from New Haven to Princeton Seminary would be, because I only know the New Haven version. But when I came here, I don't want to say concern, but my curiosity, I guess, was replaced with excitement because it was so well received, and we couldn't have found a better home for OMSC than Princeton Theological Seminary. The faculty, the students, the administrators have been so welcoming. They believe in the vision and mission of OMSC. So I have only positive things to share about my 6 months of tenure so far at OMSC. But I think Dr. Tom Hastings and other Board of Trustees made an excellent decision of relocating to Princeton.
Yeah, as a student back, I think it was 2020 or 2021 when they were making that memorandum of moving from New Haven to Princeton. Yeah, I was I think first or second year PhD student, and I was very excited to hear the news because it was a great addition, not only for the institution but also for me to be engaged and to learn more about what's going on outside of Princeton area, because we also invite various scholars and also artists as well for OMSC. So, and we'll talk more about that as we progress into our conversation. But Dr. Chung, I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are on what OMSC has in mind for its vision. What are some of the key programs that OMSC provides in carrying out that specific vision too? So do you mind sharing about that?
Yeah. So our current motto is to amplify the voices of the world Christian movement. But it wasn't always like that. As you know, it was established in 1922 as a house of fellowship. And when it was originally founded, it was a house of fellowship for missionaries on furlough. But those missionaries were largely North American missionaries. But over the course of the years, the residents' composition started to change, and especially when Gerald Anderson became the director, Dr. Gerald Anderson, he started to really pivot towards more study-oriented and scholarship. So that was the first difference of how the residents started to change. And the second difference, which is more exciting, is a demographic shift. That what started off as a North American institution and community, now look at our residents. They're from all over the world: Pakistan, Japan, Burma. I don't want to miss out everyone, but I can't remember everyone. Ethiopia, Nigeria. So it's a really exciting reality. So in that sense, OMSC really reflects the changing nature of world Christianity in a microcosm. So to amplify the voices of the World Christian Church, that is our motto and our mission and vision. And one of the flagship program that we have is a residential study program. And that residential study program is exactly what it is. It is residential, so we focus on the communal aspect. And it is a study program, so we value scholarship. But we think that fellowship and residence and scholarship are really important for one another. Yeah. So oftentimes, a lot of scholars feel isolated. They do their own research by themselves. It's a lonely process, and I'm sure you relate as you write your dissertation. It's a lonely process. But when you're in a community of scholars, and when you give honest feedback with one another, when you're vulnerable with each other and say, I have no idea what I'm doing, I need your feedback, that's when real, true scholarship happens. And that is the goal of OMSC, to advance each other's scholarship and to advance and amplify one another's voices. Yeah. And one of the favorite things that I experienced personally was our OMSC staff have created so many amazing programs for resident scholars, but our favorite moments are when they just spontaneously meet on their own, and they just spontaneously have seminars, and they just spontaneously share their research, and they just provide feedback for one another, because that's the exact type of community that we intend to create for them. And we're so thankful that the resident scholars this year are amazing, and they have such a great sense of community, and it's been really a blessing to see them flourish in that capacity.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think for those that might be interested in that program, those that might be even interested in applying for that, I think they can visit our website, OMSC website, to learn more about the details that goes into applying, and also what OMSC provides in that, I think, one academic year of that residential study program. So thank you for sharing more about that. And I love the fact that you highlighted that that theme of OMSC, of amplifying the world Christian movement. And I think OMSC does that in an academic way through the IBMR, the International Bulletin of Mission Research. And as you, the editor, do you mind introducing IBMR? You know, what are some of the academic works that is being published? Anything that you want to highlight about IBMR?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm a historian, so I love talking about history, so I hope I don't bore you. So IBMR started in 1950 as the Occasional Bulletin, and eventually Dr. Gerald Anderson really deserves a lot of praise for developing it into what we know now as IBMR. So IBMR, even the composition of writers of IBMR is a reflection of the changing nature of world Christianity. Initially, all the writers were white Protestant men, and then it started to slowly change. Various denominations and traditions represented, more women writers represented, and Dr. Tom Hastings deserves a lot of credit for very significantly increasing the number of women writers and Global South scholars. So the motto of amplifying the voices of the world Christian movement also applies for IBMR scholarship. And one of the things that we do that in a concrete way is the translation of the articles written by our Global South scholars into English language. So far we have translated Portuguese, Brazilian, Greek, Japanese, and we're underway of translating many more Francophone African countries. So we're trying to really highlight scholarship written by other languages, because there's so many scholarship written in English that is translated in other languages, but not the other way around. Right. So that's what one of the things that we're trying to do in IBMR, to really highlight and amplify their voices. Yeah. And IBMR is actually and I need to always try to be mindful, not that I don't sound too prideful, but it is the highest circulating mission and world Christianity journal and out there, and we intend to keep the high quality, that high bar of scholarship. And we get a lot of manuscripts. It's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love, and I'm really grateful to be the editor.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the fact that IBMR is doing that kind of work, especially translating from non-American, non-English language into English, because it gives a variety of more research-first scholars here in North America who, tends to only rely on, not only, but also heavily focus on, works that is written in English, but also now embrace, original works that have been published in different languages. Yeah. So it's great. Thank you for sharing that. Another aspect about OMSC that I also found very interesting and very important is the Lamin Sane grant.
Yes.
Lamin Sane research grant. Many have come to learn more about this grant over the years. Recipients have continued on doing wonderful research, cutting edge research, but we would like to get the word out more for those that might be interested. So do you mind sharing more about this Lamin Sane research grant?
Absolutely. So we started this grant 2021. And it is a 2-year grant, and over the course of 2 years, and it is awarded to 2 people. So we had 2 very qualified awardees last year, and this year our application process is open currently. So its deadline is actually June 30th. So if you can apply too. So it's for anyone whose field is world Christianity, mission studies, largely conceived, and intercultural theology, that is a common language used in Europe, or related fields. So we welcome proposals from any disciplines. It can be history, interdisciplinary, anthropology, social science. It could be either empirical research, oral history, archival research, or theology. So we welcome any type of proposals as long as they are contributing to the lived experience and lived theology that Lamin Sane so endorsed. So that's an honor of Dr. Lamin Sane. Obviously, he really cherished that lived theology aspect of world Christianity. So that's one of our mission to kind of live on that legacy of honoring him and the field, and by helping our Global South scholars in advance. So this research grant can be used for anything, research trips, archival research, oral interviews, or any research-related expenses. And we do require that they present their findings at an international conference to save their funding for that specific trip. But that is our only requirement, and we ask them to write up a report. But yeah, that is what we're looking for the people who are applying.
Yeah, thank you for that detailed information, and I think more can be, listeners and viewers can see more about that on our website as well, OMSC website. So again, thank you for sharing about that grant, and I think this is a great news for especially PhD students or researchers that are conducting research but also need financial support. So that's a wonderful thing. I know we've talked about some of the core and key aspects about OMSC and what OMSC provides, but now as the new incoming director who's been here for a little over 6 months, I'm curious to know what are some of the new projects that you're envisioning for OMSC? What do you hope also that OMSC will continue to evolve into? Could you share more about that?
Yeah, so this March, Princeton Theological Seminary's Department of Society of Religion and World Christianity and OMSC hosted a World Christianity Conference in Ghana, which you were part of. And the theme of the conference was Women in World Christianity. So even before I took on this job, I was very passionate about women's role specifically in world Christianity. So people have been talking about that. It's a buzzword. Obviously, Dr. Dana Robert really popularized it. And Dr. Gina Zerlo, my good friend, is also deserves credit for popularizing it. And I don't think it should end as a trend word or a fad. women have historically contributed so much to Christianity and now world Christianity. So I'm hoping to create some sort of program that empowers women. I'm still in the working phase, whether it's going to be a summer program or a parallel residential study program. So I'm still dreaming, but definitely something in women and world Christianity.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm excited. And remembering back to our conference in Ghana, it was such a wonderful conference at a topic that was very important and needed at this time. It was very pivotal. So again, I look forward to some of the new programs that's going to come forth through you and through OMSC. Excited about that as well.
Thank you.
For my last question though, I was interested in some of the projects that you are currently doing, some of your ongoing projects. These can be kind of, intertwined with OMSC work, but also your personal research as well, because you are also a scholar and a researcher. And I'm curious to know, what are some of the things that you've been working on?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. So I'm currently working on 2 book projects. The first one is race and ethnicity in world Christianity. So my main discipline is world Christianity, history of world Christianity, but I wasn't a visiting scholar in ethnic studies at UC Berkeley. So that's where I got the training from ethnic studies and how to see race and ethnicity in a critical lens. So I'm trying to fuse 2 disciplines and write a volume tracing the history of race and ethnicity in world Christianity, which is, it's really weird and strange that we don't have any volume written on that. So we have Jehu Hansel's very good book on migration in world Christianity. So we're having a lot of these new themes in world Christianity, and I think race and ethnicity also deserve a central place in our discourse.
Wonderful. That's exciting news. And I look forward to reading both of your edited volumes, and I'm sure that it's going to create more conversation within our field. Again, thank you for sharing about OMSC, Dr. Chung, and about your personal work. It's been a joy having you here at Princeton Seminary as well. Again, thank you for your time today, and I look forward to continue the works of OMSC here in Princeton.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Byung-ho.
Thank you so much.